We found that more than 500 retired U.S. military personnel since 2015 have gone to work for foreign governments or for foreign-owned companies. The vast majority of those are in the Middle East.
Let's say you devote your life to military service. You enroll in officer training and work up the ranks until one day you are a general with combat experience in whichever country the states decided had too much oil. American generals and admirals are O-10 level employees and make the base salary of $203,000 a year with generous benefits and bonuses for deployment.
Everybody thinks people in the military are broke. But actually, active duty military pays better than most civilian jobs.
That's good money to most people, especially when it continues as a lifetime military pension of $180,000 every single year for doing nothing, once you have put in your 20 years of service. Servicemen and women earn every last cent of this money, and people who have dedicated their lives to serving in our armed forces should be looked after. The system is much better at looking after the top brass than the common soldier.
So with that, I want to once again personally thank Jim for his outstanding service and offer the mic to him to say a few words.
But that's beside the point. I could never do this job, and I respect anybody that can. At least I did until the world started learning about what they do after their career comes to an end, or just gets started, depending on how you look at it.
The government just said this. They didn't think there was much of a public interest in knowing that retired generals and admirals had these high-paying jobs with foreign governments. We, of course, disagree.
The retirement benefits of a military general should be good enough for anybody to live off of, but some don't see it this way. Some think that generals are basically chief executives of large organizations with tens of thousands of employees handling billions of dollars and working on the most challenging projects in the world. When you put it like that, the public service pay scale starts to look a bit mediocre. Leaders in the private sector are making millions of dollars a year for the same level of work, and they don't spend their time in active war zones. So let's set things right. High-level military leaders have taken a page out of the investment banking intern's playbook. It's not about how much money they are making right now. It's about the job they can get once they have padded out their resume a bit.
If you were retired U.S. military personnel, in particular if you were high-ranking general or admiral, do you really want to go work for a government with not very good human rights records or governments that aren't democracies like the United States?
So it's time to learn how money works to find out how America's top military leadership are using their careers to score obscenely lucrative contracts with some not-so-friendly governments. This week's lesson was brought to you by Brilliant. Brilliant is a learning platform helping you develop your knowledge in math, science, statistics, and some fun areas like finance and logic. Brilliant offers an interactive way to learn by giving you a lesson and regularly testing your knowledge to make sure you're keeping up and actually learning the subject. If you don't understand a subject, Brilliant has your back. Their easy-to-understand explanations help me to grasp complicated subjects that my high school teachers never explained to me in a way that made sense. They have courses in quantitative finance that I highly recommend to all of my viewers. It teaches important finance topics like derivatives and fixed income, helping you understand how financial analysis actually works in an easy and digestible way. As a former financial professional, I can say with full confidence that knowing options Greeks and futures contracts will put you far ahead of others in understanding finance, and you could take this step today with Brilliant. No matter if you want to learn from your computer or your phone, Brilliant makes the learning experience fun and easy. To get started for free, go to brilliant.org/howmoneyworks or click the link in the description, and the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Becoming a top military leader is not easy. Recruits have to be accepted into officer training and then show exceptional leadership as they work their way up the commissioned ranks. Officers will spend at minimum 20 years in the service before they can become a general-level officer, and most will never make it. Once they do make it, though, they will start to notice that their career is very narrow. The only progression they can make is upward within the military because a lot of their combat expertise doesn't translate to the private sector, at least not yet. Give Bezos a few more years of horizontal integration, and maybe we will have the Amazon army. The higher the ranks, the more time officers will start to spend behind a desk working on logistics, administration, and procurement. Procurement is the process of the military buying their supplies from military contractors. It's an important job to keep the military equipped with everything they need to wage war, from rations to fighter jets. There are dozens of checks and balances on this process, but designated military officers get the final sign-off on everything the military purchases, because their boots-on-the-ground experience is essential to ensuring that the equipment the military is getting is going to hold up in the field. Military contracting is a lucrative game, and the big players know that military officers are the final gatekeepers standing between them and a fat government contract.
If we take the capitals away and just say private military contracting, has always happened and will always happen.
That is why they are always on the lookout to hire retired military leaders to come and work for them, usually on salaries 2 to 3 times greater than they were making in the military. And that's in addition to the military pension that they get to keep. The Public Relations Department of Raytheon, Lockheed, and Halliburton will say that these former military officers are hired for their experience and that they work with engineers to build better tools for soldiers. I am sure they do great work there, but they do better work talking with their old friends still in the service and working out what would push their contract proposals over the line to secure multi-billion-dollar industry contracts. This gets worse when you remember that most military officers don't have many career options outside of the military, so they want to keep these companies happy while they're in procurement, to make sure that they get one of these cushy exit opportunities too once they have put in their 20 years to qualify for a military pension. This is called the revolving door, and no matter how hard the military tries to stop it, it's always going to exist.
It's a new revolving door, and it can be very lucrative for retired U.S. military personnel.
But we already knew that this was going on, and as long as the equipment being procured is still going to hold up in the field, the only people that this really harms are the taxpayers, and who cares about them, right? But what if I told you that military officers have started taking advantage of a new exit opportunity that has potential to not only do damage to the national budget, but also do real damage to national security? This is James L. Jones, a retired 4-star general with 40 years of military service under his belt. Since retiring, he's been keeping himself busy with other projects like consulting for the government of Saudi Arabia and Libya. Or former Army Lieutenant General Michael Barbero, who served for 38 years and then started privately consulting for the same 2 governments as well as the government of Kuwait. Freedom of Information requests submitted by the Washington Post as a part of an ongoing investigation found that since 2015, about 450 retired officers are doing similar work for other governments located mostly in the Middle East and North Africa. The actual roles these men and women go into and the service they perform is very vague. The reports often said little more than technical consulting. But what exactly are they consulting on? Giving military information to foreign governments, even if they are allies, is treason, so obviously it couldn't be that. But then again, why else would these governments be paying such high prices? A consulting firm, co-owned by 6 retired Pentagon officers, recently negotiated a $23.6 million consulting contract with the state of Qatar. The deal later fell through, but had it not, what would the government be paying all this money for? Army generals are very talented in their one area of expertise, which is military strategy. But we have already worked out that this isn't what they are selling. But $23.6 million can get you world-class consulting from much more established outfits like McKinsey, Bain, or BCG. So why go with a no-name firm run by just 6 guys? Maybe Qatar just really wanted to support the troops. You might think that it can't get much worse than this. Retired military generals selling the military knowledge they gained from years of serving their country to governments with atrocious human rights records. But it does. The worst part is how they're getting away with it. There is government oversight measures in place that are supposed to stop this kind of work from being possible at all. The Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution prohibits federal office holders from accepting gifts, jobs, or titles from any king, prince, or foreign state without the consent of Congress. Now, even though they are retired, the law still applies to former military generals because they can technically be recalled to duty at any time and because they have knowledge of sensitive military information. The military pension exists in part to compensate these officers for the limitations that will be placed on them for their life after their retirement. The law does not apply to junior military personnel that don't receive a pension, and that is why they are free to go and join private military contractors like Academy, where they can earn up to $500,000 a year working private security for the highest bidder. But that's grunt work compared to the paychecks demanded by top former military brass. But is Congress really giving these men permission to go and work in the roles that will obviously hurt national security in the long term? Well, no, they are not actually. These men are giving themselves permission to go and do it. Congress decided that they were too busy to decide what jobs former military officers could do once they left service. So in 1977, they delegated the constitutional responsibility to the Pentagon. So now, before these men can start working on their million-dollar consulting contracts, they need to get permission from their old colleagues at the Pentagon. The armed services can deny these applications for any reason, especially if they think the work would jeopardize national security or adversely affect the foreign relations of the United States. These applications also come with a strict background check and counterintelligence review, so it sounds like the process is pretty airtight. But investigators from the Washington Post found that, in their words, approval was almost automatic, with 95% of applicants being approved without further questioning.
We really deduced here is that
nobody in the US government is really paying much attention to the human rights issues or other foreign policy complications that might ensue once you have hundreds of people going to work for another country.
Most applicants didn't even bother to officially apply, because the Pentagon rarely follows up on these postings, and even when they do, the punishment is rarely more severe than a military pension getting cut off until the appropriate paperwork is submitted. The reason they get away with this goes back to the same revolving door that senior military officials have with military contractors. If a military officer at the Pentagon denies an application for a retired general to work for a foreign government, then they will only make it harder for themselves if they ever wanted to cash out on their military service. Even if the officer in charge of the review has the best intentions, they know that the retired military officer can just appeal the decision and get it passed up to a more senior officer who is a little closer to retirement in that 7-figure consulting payday. A record of overturned appeals and a bad reputation amongst their military peers makes it very hard for officers to try to do the right thing to get ahead. It's easier and more lucrative to keep the system going while waiting their turn to make a small fortune. And if you think this is as bad as it gets, prepare to be disappointed. Remember former General James L. Jones from earlier? Well, it was begrudgingly revealed that his work with the Saudi government was advising them on how they could get better military capabilities without spending more money. The people Jones employed to carry out this work, how much he paid them, and the details of their work were all sealed by the State Department. The State Department claimed that it wasn't anybody's right to know how much a private citizen gets paid or the nature of their work so long as it isn't breaking any laws. That argument is particularly unconvincing since these men received public information salaries all of their lives, and while they are no longer serving, they are still technically military personnel and not private civilians. I get that the right to privacy should be protected, but since this information can only be obtained by taking the Department of Defense to court to sue them for freedom of information, I'm starting to think that this was more likely the 7-figure salaries and the combat-adjacent roles would just make the wrong people look bad. If the government does eventually learn that you can't rely on organizations to police themselves, then this revolving door will likely be closed. Which means that people will have to go back to making obscenely large paychecks the old-fashioned way, by creating something that people value and then marketing it for a profit. I'm just kidding. It's by clawing their way up to the top of the corporate ladder. Go and watch my video on the steps that you need to take to become a corporate CEO at a Fortune 500 company to see the path that you need to take to get there. A big thanks again to Brilliant for making it possible for everybody to keep on learning how money works.
Because of exciting current events, the Army needs new members. New members who want to earn money for college and see a part of the world that tourists never go to.
Doesn't the Army have to fight in wars?
Not wars, global struggles.